All right, let's get started. Hi there, my name is Angelica and I'm the Solargraf trainer. And today we're going to be taking a look at Solargraf's 3D design tool. Now, in terms of what to expect, the session will last about 40 minutes with 20 minutes at the end for a Q&A. Please feel free to leave your questions or comments in the chat, and a recording will be sent to you by email after the session. So at a high level, these are just some of the features that we will be focusing on. We will be focusing on our 3D design tool and our good guided design workflow. We will be sure to go in and show you how to use our automated features through our AI that will detect our pitch, our azimuth, our trees and obstructions, as well as the outline of the roof. And then we'll get into using our features like our smart designer that will place our panels strategically on our behalf. So with that being said, let's jump into Solargraf. Just go on full screen here. And let's get started. So we're going to go ahead and click Create Project over on the top right corner. And from there, we will input the address that we would like to work on. We'll select the address from the drop-down. This is Google Maps. We can search by coordinates or by address. The home that we're looking to work on will be pinned. We can always left-click to adjust the placement of the pin. Fill in our customer's details. So maybe we have Phil Williams, and we can fill in the rest of our customer's details and click Next. In our pre-design page, we have a few options available, and we can input this information now or later, but it is recommended to input this information before you get started with creating your project. And we're going to go in and set up our project details. So our zoning, is the project residential or commercial? This will impact the utility and tariff rates that populate a little bit later on. We also have our service type. So do we want to create a design or order a proposal? So we are going to be creating a design together today, but we do have a paid design service. So you're more than welcome to learn more about that. And then we have your system type. So Solargraf does support various system types. We have new system designs as well as our system expansion and battery only add-ons. And you can choose the system type that you would like to design here in Solargraf. Next, we have your site imagery. So Solargraf will pull up imagery through Nearmap, our high definition imagery provider, but we do have a variety of imagery providers available like Google HD and Azure. You also get access with Nearmap to capture dates. So just depending on the time of year that the imagery was captured, you can toggle between the different capture dates. And you can see that imagery was actually captured as recent as February 3rd, but you are more than welcome to come in and check out the different capture dates as required. Now, one of the things that I will mention when it comes to selecting the capture date is our goal is to try to choose imagery that is as clear as possible, because we want to be able to get a clear view of these roof lines so that Solargraf's AI can really do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. So we want imagery that is as clear as possible, that gives us a good view of our different roof lines. Another thing you can do is use these arrows to pan your imagery, moving it further north, south, east, or west. And you can even opt to zoom out. So if you're working on a larger property, zooming out just allows you to capture everything in frame. Lastly, when it comes to imagery, of course, you might come across new builds, or you might even come across scenarios where, maybe the imagery is not as clear. So you might have another image source like a blueprint or a drone image, and those imageries can also be uploaded into Solargraf. Further along, you'll find your energy consumption section, and when we have fetch utility and tariff rates automatically selected, Solargraf will pull in the utility provider as well as the tariff. We have our tariff, which is the homeowners currently on. You'll find their rate schedule on their utility bill. And then we have the post-solar tariff that will automatically be selected for projects based in California. We'll automatically set that to NEM3, but of course, if you're based outside of California, you'll just choose the applicable post-solar tariff, which is a tariff the homeowner changes to once the PV is installed. We also have a field for grid connection. We support net metering, net feed-in tariffs, net billing, and gross feed-in tariffs. So just choose the one that is applicable to the utility provider. Then we have your electricity bills and consumption section. You have an estimate option and then an upload usage option. If you are going with the upload usage option, Solargraf supports 15-minute and hourly interval data. So you can always grab a CSV file and upload that into Solargraf. Alternatively, you can use our estimate option, enter in monthly bills. So from month to month. So you can fill in the data for month to month, or what you can do is use something like property size or annual bills and usage. And what Solargraf will do is use intelligent baselining in order to forecast the homeowner's month-to-month consumption based on the typical consumption patterns of the homes in the area. So you can see how this consumption gets distributed across each month. Lastly, we have consumption profiling, where we can choose from one of the predefined consumption profiles or even create a custom profile. And of course, when you upload interval data, Solargraf will aggregate the information to reflect the accurate pattern of consumption. Selecting a consumption profile can be helpful, especially when we're considering pairing the PV system with the battery, because it'll give us better insight into what type of storage solution would be most optimal for this homeowner. So an example is, let's say we have a household with school kids. They have peaks in consumption in the morning, peaks in consumption in the evening, but the system's likely to produce the most energy during midday when everyone's out work and school. So by pairing the PV system with the battery, we'll be able to store the energy produced during the day for that evening usage, further reducing their utility bill. So this is a great example for a California project. Having this insight will help us size the system appropriately for the homeowner. And then lastly, we have your manage appliances here. And this is where we can model in heavy load appliances. So you can simply come in and model in how much of their consumption is allocated to some of these heavy load appliances. Or alternatively, what you could do is you can make it forward looking. So let's say we have a customer who says, hey, I'm planning to get an EV. I'm not sure the make and model, or if they are sure of the make and model, you can choose the make and model from the list. We'll just go with, the homeowner doesn't know. And one of the really great things that you have the option to do is you're going to be able to come in and uncheck this box, which is, this appliance is included in the current bills and usage. And by unchecking this box, basically we're telling the tool that within that 12,000 kilowatt hours you inputted, this would be added on top of their consumption additionally. So that's going to take us from that 12,000 kilowatt hour value to 13,250 kilowatt hours, which is going to accommodate that future increase in consumption, so that when we go into design our PV system, we're already accounting for that increase. So that's a really great tool that we have. Now, once we fill in our pre-design page, we can always make adjustments later on. But as I said, it's a great idea to get started with that information. And we can click Create Design on the bottom right corner to get into creating a design. All right, so here we are in the design tool. We're going to focus on our first three steps. Step one, roof design, where we're going to come in to build our 3D model. We have step two, which is roof design, solar design, which is where we'll get our shading calculations, and we will be able to place our panels. And then lastly, we have battery design, where we can get a battery recommendation, okay? Over on the far right, we have some navigation tools that you are more than welcome to use. So we have our compass on screen. You can jump between our 2D and 3D worlds, zoom in, zoom out. You can scroll in or scroll out with your cursor. You also have fit to screen, rotate, and move. You can use all of these tools throughout your design experience. If I just come over to our guided box here, which with the instructionals on how to use the tool, you basically have a quick walkthrough of what to do step by step. The blue button represents your next action, and then the black button represents your alternative option. So we're going to get into that in a little bit more details. You can find your design tool settings. This is where you can come in and manage your preferences for different aspects of design. You also have your undo, redo, delete, clear all, and you even have a split screen view. So if you want to get a sense of what you're designing before you actually create your design, that is something that you can pull up at any point in time. So this is our little split screen view here. And We also have these three little dots, and this allows us to open up other tools. One point that I will highlight is you can always change your imagery still within the design. So if you ever want to jump to a different capture date, maybe you notice that the roof lines are not as clear as you would like them to be, you can jump over to a different capture date or a different imagery provider. And then we also have a full menu of keyboard shortcuts. And you can open this up quickly by clicking H on your keyboard. But the keyboard shortcuts really do make for a more seamless design experience. And you can easily navigate through creating a design by implementing the use of these keyboard shortcuts. All right, so with that being said, we just did a quick, tour of the design tool. We're going to get into modeling this site. Now, as I said, the goal is to allow the AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So we're going to start with detect roof. But of course, if you wanted to, you could manually draw your roof, or if you were using custom imagery, you might need to go ahead and draw out the roof lines. So let's go ahead and click detect roof. Let's see what the AI detects for us. It did a pretty good job of detecting all of the lines of our roof. And really what our goal is here is to come in and verify that we have all of the necessary roof lines modeled in. So as you can see, we have all of our roof lines modeled in, and we're going to be checking for any false positives or drawing in any roof lines that are missing. So an example of a false positive, if we just look back at our split screen view here, on this facet, there is not a roof line that goes down across this facet. So we can simply use our select tool, S on our keyboard, and we can come in and click that roof line and hit delete roof edge. So we just want to make sure that that roof line gets highlighted in blue. It's selected. We can hit delete roof edge, and then that roof line will be removed from our design. If we needed to draw in a roof line, so let's say a roof line was missing. So let's say this roof line was not here. We'll get rid of that. So let's say this roof line was missing and it looks something like this. Hold on. We can come in and use our pen tool, and the goal is to always start at an existing roof line and work our way over to another existing white point or roof line. And if you ever need to adjust any of the lines, you can always left click and drag, and you can hold down on shift to place your roof line a little more precisely. So once you verified that your roof lines are accurate, your next step is to click Render 3D. And from there, Solargraf's AI will run through detecting the pitch, the azimuth, trees, and obstructions on our behalf, and our 3D model will be constructed. All right, so here we have it. Our 3D model is ready to go. I will go ahead and click rotate. We have a shortcut for that. That's the letter R on our keyboard. And we can just do a quick rotate on our 3D model to inspect it for accuracy. So it came up pretty good. And of course, ways to verify the accuracy of our design is to come in and click our split screen view again. So we can just do that 360 rotation here. We could also drop down to our street view to get an idea of what this house looks like. So we can also take a look at the home in Google Maps Street View, all within Solargraf. Another way for us to determine the accuracy of our design is to come into our LiDAR. Solargraf references LiDAR in order to size the building and ensure that each facet is designed accurately. We can see when the LiDAR was captured. And right now we're looking at our point cloud view. Let's move to the mesh view so you might be able to see this a little bit better. But with the mesh view, you can see the different levels of elevation. We can see the silhouette of the home and the silhouette of all of the trees in our design. Solargraf is also skewing the trees to be slightly larger to account for their growth. So we are able to model them in. And then let's say there was a tree that existed but no longer exists. You'll notice that that tree wasn't detected in our design, but we will see that the silhouette of the tree that may have existed previously. Okay, so that's going to be our LiDAR. If ever you notice that your design is maybe out of alignment with LiDAR, so let's say the building was too short, you could always click, let's go back to, let's go back to here. You can always click Fit Design to LiDAR, and Solargraf's AI will reorient our design to match the LiDAR. So that's a pretty cool feature that we have as well. So that's going to be LiDAR. Once again, that's what Solargraf is referencing in order to create this 3D model. Now, this is a perfect world. This is our design, pretty much being completed with 2 clicks. We click detect roof outline, and then we have render 3D, and then the 3D model is ready. In most instances, at this point, we're going to click Design Solar in order to proceed to panel placement. But before we do that, I'm going to just take a step back, okay? So if ever, everything didn't follow that path of the AI handling everything for us, we may need to click Fix Site Model, which will take us back to our 2D view where we can make corrections to our site model. Okay, now let's just talk about what everything means. I just clicked Fit to Screen here to reorient my design. So I'm just going to help you identify what everything means in our design, and if ever you encounter any issues with your roof, how you can go about making those corrections. So I'm going to mess some things up. Just bear with me for a second, just so that you can kind of see, how that can impact your design. Let's get rid of a wall. Okay. So I'm going to just generate this 3D model. It's going to look wonky, and this is intentional. So for whatever reason, let's say you had a project and the project didn't have LiDAR. Now our 3D model is incorrect. Solargraf is going to highlight and illustrate to you that there's parts of this model that are not accurate. So we'll need to make some corrections here, okay? So in order to correct our site model, we need to click Fix Site Model. And that will take us back to our 2D perspective, okay? And as you can see, the parts of the roof that are incorrect are identified. So we will need to come in and make those corrections. So let's just talk about what everything means in our design, and then we'll get into making those corrections, okay? And, as I said, if you encounter issues with your design, these are going to be the main culprits, okay? So one, you want to check your roof outline. You do want to check that all of the necessary roof lines are drawn in. And if there's any roof lines that should not be there, they're removed. That's step 1. Evaluate the outline of the roof. If you notice that the roof outline is not drawn well, go back in using Select to click roof lines and delete them, or come back in and use the pen tool to draw in any missing roof lines. Okay, so that's step 1. Once we verify that the roof outline is accurate, right, the next thing that we might need to check is the roof pitch and azimuth. So if we look at all of the facets on our roof, you'll notice that there is a blue box. That blue box is going to populate the roof pitch, and there will be an arrow that points towards the azimuth. So we want to make sure that, maybe there are different pitches across the roof, but we want to try to ensure that all of the pitches on each facet are at least consistent. So we can use our Select tool to click into a roof facet, and this gives us the ability to manually use the slider to change the pitch of the roof, or you can click Apply New Pitch to All, and let's say, we want all of them to be 22 degrees. Well, now we've updated the pitches across all facets. So that's step 1, okay? The next step is to adjust the azimuth. So if we look at our facets, you'll notice that there's a yellow line, and also, as I mentioned, there's an arrow. The arrow will follow that yellow line. So I'm just going to take us back into 3D to show you this. So you'll notice that some of our facets are still slightly wonky, and this usually tends to be a scenario where we have the incorrect azimuth on our design. So we need to click Fix Site Model to go back to this 2D perspective, okay? And usually you're not going to regenerate the 3D model, between each change or adjustment, but once again, I'm really just trying to flesh out what everything means. So if we look at all of our facets, okay, keep in mind that the azimuth is referring to the direction that the roof facet is flush towards. So think of where the rainwater drains, okay? So this facet drains in this direction. this facet drains in this direction, and this facet drains to the east. This one should drain towards the west. But in this instance, our arrow is pointing to the ridgeline. So that's an indicator to me that my azimuth is out of place. So to make a correction to this, what we will need to do is use our select tool, and we will click into our facet and then have the ability to rotate our azimuth. As we rotate our azimuth, we will be able to adjust the placement. You'll notice that our arrow is pointed now towards the west. And when we come in and regenerate our 3D model, that distortion in our design will be resolved. Okay, so now we only have two facets that are illustrated in red, and this part of the roof is fixed. Okay. The last thing that you might encounter when it comes to fixing your design is missing internal vertical walls. So if we just open up our split screen view here, when we are talking about an internal vertical wall, we're referring to parts of the roof where there is a split story or where there's a dormer that would have a change in height between two facets or a separation between two roof facets. So as you can see, these facets are on one level and this facet sits at a separate level. Okay, so to create that division, we need this internal vertical wall. Let me show you this in the street view. This is what we're referring to as an internal vertical wall. Okay, so whenever we encounter those elements in our design, we need to ensure that that's being reflected in our design here in Solargraf. So an internal vertical wall in Solargraf will typically be labeled in purple. So that's why we have a purple roof line here, but we do not have a purple roof line represented here. Here's another internal vertical wall, and this is the one that we saw on the front of the home in street view. And it actually turns out that we don't have the internal vertical wall here. So what we would need to do is click verify walls. And that basically activates our walls tool where we can simply click the roof line to add a wall, or we can unclick a line to remove a wall. So if there's no wall, it's just going to either show in white or yellow if it's an azimuth. And when we click the roof line, it will then be shown in purple or, yellow and purple if it's both an azimuth and an internal wall. And when we render 3D, our 3D model will be restored. And as I said, those are going to be the three main culprits of, any issues you encounter with your design. So I'm going to just take a pause there, see if there's questions. But if there's not, we'll continue along. You can drop your questions in the chat as I am looking out for them as well. Okay, so I will proceed. And as I said, if there's questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. What we'll do next is we'll move in and click Design Solar. And that's going to take us to our Solar Design tab where we can get into panel placement. So one of the first things that happen is Solargraf is going to populate a heat map. This heat map is going to detail three values. The Solargraf is going to detail the solar axis value, the tilt and orientation factor, and the total solar resource fraction. As we hover our cursor over the different parts of the roof, we can see the different solar axis values. So on parts of the roof that are darker purple, there's going to be more significant losses in comparison to parts of the roof that are just like an orange hue or a deeper orange purple hue. And then of course, as we get to this really bright yellow color, even sometimes almost white, those parts of the roof will have the highest solar axis values. So that's our indicator that these parts of the roof are most optimal for solar. So once we've done a quick, evaluation of our solar access, we can get into panel placement. So what we can do is come in and choose how we want to create our design. We have two options. We can click I'll do it myself, which allows us to manually pick and choose the parts of the roof that we would like to place panels on. In most instances, you might go with design for me, which will allow Solargraf's AI to let you create a design based on your priority. So one of the really great things about Build System for me will basically allow you to choose max fit. Max fit auto-populates each facet with as many panels that can fit. And some people like to do that and work backwards and remove panels. Or you can use the consumption offset or the savings on energy bill. Now, these are a little bit different just because when we're talking about the energy bill, that's going to account for remaining grid import charges and customer service fees. And in most instances, there's always going to be a remaining bill. So I typically recommend designing based on the consumption offset. And you can set the consumption offset target to be whatever you'd like. You can make your selection for panels and microinverters here. We, of course, support designing string inverter or central inverter systems, but we'll go with an Enphase system today. We can also get a battery recommendation in one go. So let's say we're going to go with a 5P, let's go with a 5P battery and see what the tool recommends here. And from there, we can just say we want all of our panels in portrait, and from there, build system. And Solargraf will strategically place the panels on the roof, facets that are most optimal for solar, and also recommend a battery configuration that is most optimal for our customer as well. So the system is recommending a 9.35 kilowatt hour system. Our consumption offset is 109%. They're recommending five 5Ps, and our panel count is 22 panels. Okay. So from here, we can say, this is the design we want. We can give it a save on the top right here. If we wanted to make further adjustments, we can. So let's say for this array here, we can click on it. And Solargraf will then give us the edit array details over on the left side here. And we can say, let's see what the design looks like in, landscape. Let's see what it looks like in portrait. If I want to quickly change panels, I can change to a different panel. Any panels that are invalidated will be removed. That will vary based on, the size of the modules. You can then also come in and do a single click, and that will give you these blue points. This sort of works like an accordion. You can use these blue points to expand your array, or you can use these blue points to reduce the size of the array, so you can pick and choose. You can do a double click to select an individual panel and delete it. You can left click and hold down to rearrange the placement of your panels. So you can be like, okay, well, let's drop these panels here instead. I prefer to use this side of the roof, and I can then, expand my array. Solargraf will confirm in green that that panel can be added, and we can do the same thing going over this way. And then I can just, fine tune the placement by picking up the array. And then I can recalculate my production. So that's one way to get panels on the roof, right? So that was using design for me, and the tool took care of placing panels on the roof. Let's clear all. All right, the other option to get panels on your roof is to come in with I'll do it myself. Using I'll do it myself, you can come in and use the manual solar design setup. Once again, make your selections for panels and inverters and microinverters. And then you can choose, your orientation and then the placement method. So you can use auto. Auto is like max fit, but Solargraf will max fit one facet at a time as you click into each facet, and Solargraf will populate the facet with as many panels that can fit. Alternatively, you can use manual, and manual allows you to hover and click to place each panel as you want. Some people like to do that, so that they can, really place the panels where they want them to go. You could do a mix of portrait and landscape, so you can easily, jump to landscape and, add a row of landscape panels as well. So that's something that you can do. Now, once panels are placed on the roof, you can merge them into an array. So the tool will allow you to snap them together in some instances. I don't think it likes it. But you can sometimes, well, let me show you with the other panel. So like, let's say this panel's over here, I could snap it and it will become one array. So that's an option. Let's get rid of those panels. I'll do it myself, manual. You can also come in and use your manual option. And when you hover into the facet, as you left click and hold down and drag your cursor, the parts of the roof that the cursor passes over will get populated with panels like this. So you can quickly create designs. So let's say, you're happy with your design, you click calculate on your production. You see these gray borders. These gray borders are your fire setbacks. So Solargraf, sometimes depending on your company settings, you can set it to automatically remove panels that don't adhere to the setbacks. I do have this feature turned on called disregard setbacks. So that's why the tool didn't account for them, but I turned that off. So you saw some panels were eliminated once I accounted for the setbacks and pathways. So now that kind of changes how many panels that can fit into a facet. And then we might opt to design based on that instead. So we can, come in and populate those facets. And then once we're happy with our design, we can click calculate to get our final production. And at some point, what we might consider doing, let's get some more panels on the roof. I think it was 22 panels that got us. And let's say like we can have like, the 22 panels, right? But based on where the panels are placed on the roof, that might not give us the same production, right? So when we had the panels, focused on this facet, and just the three here, that gave us a 109% consumption offset. Now, based on this design here, that's only 102%. So, really the solar axis of each facet is being accounted for here in our design. We could always come into our little visibility menu and turn on the panel level heat map so that we can get an idea of which panels are most productive versus least productive. And then other than that, once you're finished with panel placement, you are more than welcome to download our reports. You have roof reports, shade reports, roof geometry, and other monthly and hourly production data that is available in those reports and system losses. And then once you're finished with, your PV design, you can proceed to add a battery. So here we are in the battery design tool. This is set up in your company settings page. And basically what you have the ability to do is choose your manufacturer as well as the battery model that you want a recommendation for. Let's say we want to do the 10C today. Let's do the 5P since we already did it. Just so you can see that comparison and why the tool recommended the 5Ps to us earlier. We could choose if the batteries are grid tied or not. We could also opt to choose our battery mode, and each battery mode is going to have what the primary focus is. So you can choose, backup during outages. If that's the focus, we're going to be focusing on what items are backed up in the case of an outage and what the backup duration is. So that will have an impact on the recommendation. But in most instances, especially when you're working on projects with the time of use tariff, our goal will be the savings with exports. And that's going to look at the total net savings and the utility bill offset. So when we click build system, and yes, of course, the recording will be sent by email, so I'll send that out once it's ready. And from there, you have the different recommendations. You can see from here, the comparison between each item. And you might want to just have a balancing act of what's most optimal versus what's, the greatest amount of savings. You can see the different utility bill offsets. So you might be able to find a great middle ground that offers high amounts of savings while also reducing the homeowner's cost. And you can just check off that option that you would like to use instead. So maybe we'll just go for the 20 kilowatt hours and we'll click save. And then that battery will be added to our design. So once that battery has been saved, we are pretty much good to go. We can then jump over to our overview page. And over in our overview page, this is going to be where we could start putting together the details of the proposal. So a feature that I did want to mention is that Solargraf does support the ability to create multiple proposal options. So if you did want to showcase different panel layouts, maybe different battery configurations, maybe showing the homeowner a tree removal service versus, tree trimming versus doing nothing, you can come into designs and click clone design, and that will give you a secondary option, or you can actually create up to 3 different options to be live on your proposal. And basically, how this works is each proposal option will be their own individual options in your account, and you could toggle back and forth. And each option can have its own design, solar design or battery design, or it can have anything under option settings customized between the different options. So once you're finished with, setting up, the pricing, managing what materials are applied and incentives that are applicable, if you want to have, different utility bills built in, that's all something that you can do here. Then you'll just come in and decide what financing products you're going to offer your customer. And from there, you're going to head into your proposal. So from the top right here, you can click Edit Proposal. This is your preview of the proposal prior to sending it to your customer. So I just recommend taking a few moments to review the proposal. And this will then give you the option to hit send and email the proposal to your customer. Now, just something to show you quickly. When it comes to our design, this is interactive. The whole proposal is interactive, and the homeowner will actually be able to see that 3D model in their proposal. So that's pretty cool. And it's something they can interact with. They can hide the shading, they can hide the trees, and this is something they can interact with. And then for you as the salesperson, as the installer, as you're presenting the proposal to your customer, you might actually want to open presentation mode. So you can do that from here as well. Um, so you could open your proposal. And basically, this would be your presentation that you can show your customer. And as I said, that interactive option is available. And they can see that 3D model that you built on their proposal, as well as all of their production savings calculations, all of those details. So we do have a session that is primarily focused on the proposal that will be hosted next week at the same time. So that's going to be it for creating a design in Solargraf. Now, other things to just mention is over on the top left, you have your settings page. I highly do recommend coming into your settings and ensuring you come to design settings, loading in your materials, as well as your different design parameters. So just kind of set some rules for how you want the design tool to function. So explore that functionality. And lastly, you can also find our support page. So if you need further assistance, you could always chat with us. You can give us a call. You have access to our videos on YouTube, and you are more than welcome to check out our help center where you can find knowledge-based articles that review the features available in Solargraf. So that's it for me today. All right, so I didn't see any questions coming through. I appreciate everyone taking the time to join me today, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.